I've been using WordPress since 2009. And while the core things in WordPress have stayed pretty much the same, my workflows, the things that I've learned, the tools that I use, they've changed a lot in the last 11 years. So today I want to spend a little bit of time just highlighting the 6 applications I use on my Mac every day to help me with WordPress. And that may be building a local site or building something, a feature for my wife, or fixing some bugs on WordPress at VIP.com or anything along those lines. So these are the 6 tools that I want to show you today. So let's go ahead and take a look. All right, I've got all the tabs open here for the applications that we're going to talk about. And the first one here is Visual Studio Code. And this is a free code editor and it is extremely powerful and extremely customizable. And that's probably one of the things that I like the most about this program. And there's other ones that are out there that are free and customizable as well, like Sublime Text or even the code editor called Atom. And those are ones that are great, but I really have fallen in love with VSCode. And this has the ability to, like I said, do a lot of customizations. You can see here on the main screen that it looks very, very busy, but it's not really. There's a lot that you can do, and there's a lot that of customizations that you can make it look a lot cleaner. For example, let's go ahead and just pull open VS Code, and we can look at that real quick here. Here's VS Code, and I've just got a WooCommerce folder open here, and I've got the ability to, if I need the terminal or I need to open something up, I can just open it up there, and it shows me when the last time I used Git or pushed a commit there. It's been 189 days. It's been a little while since I've updated this site. And I can hide the sidebar and whatnot. So to make it look like what it can really look like customized, if we get rid of that bottom and if we get rid of the sidebar, now you can see that this is what it is like to do code and to work on code. And you can even have multiple columns, which I really like. So if you're on a big screen and you want to see 2 things side by side, this is really great. This is a great feature. There's tons of things that I can go into more detail about, but this is the main thing that I want to show with you is just VS Code. You can see it's got a cool color scheme. There's tons of color schemes that you can download. This one is the free Cobalt 2 theme by Wes Boss. I'll put a link down below in the description where you can see more and how you can download this. But if you want more details, if you want more information on how to make it look like this clean editor without the sidebar on the left, moving the sidebar over to the right, without the bottom, without the top, like all the things, all the busyness that's there, just let me know and we can go ahead and I can do another video on that. So like I said, like I got rid of all the side stuff. I got rid of this bottom. I got rid of the top. I got rid of tabs. I got rid of a lot of things. And it just makes it so much cleaner. I can focus on writing code versus like trying to manipulate and keep all of the things straight and whatnot. So that's the first one. The first thing is having a good code editor. And whether you choose VS Code or you choose any of the other ones, just make sure that you have a good one. You like it. You get excited by looking at the visuals. That's one of my favorite things. Like I really like the color scheme. I like it a lot. And so I get excited when I'm starting to use it. And so that's the first one. The second thing on my list here is to use a system or an app that will allow you to create a WordPress site locally. And so, for example, there's one here called Local by Flywheel. This one is a very effortless way to set up. You basically click the download button there in the corner, and this works on Mac or PCs, and you can download it. And then as you see here, this is just the interface, and that interface will allow you to go through and set up a WordPress site. So you basically click a few times, give it a name, put a username and a password in, and then you can set up a WordPress site locally. And here's just a little interface here where you can see what all of them look like and that they have. They have, little screenshots of what the site looks like and whatnot. Local by far is the easiest, I think, and it is the most aesthetically pleasing. The other one that's out there is called Desktop Server, and they do a really good job as well. You can store blueprints with both of these. So like if you have the same 14 plugins that you always install, you can save those as a blueprint. So when you spin up a new site, it already has all of those plugins already set up. It can set up with a certain version of WordPress, or you can use the latest version. It's really, really great. All of them have come a long way in setting up a local version of WordPress. So those are the 2. Both of those work on Mac and PC. And if you're interested, there's links down in the description on how to get those. The third one, the one that I use, is called Valet Plus. This is more of a command line interface thing. So I don't ever have an app that's running. It just automatically runs all the time. And so if I wanted to go to woo.test, I have this site here that looks terrible, but it's my test site and it is local to my computer. So if I would go back to VS Code and change something, and then I could refresh right here and you would see exactly what I changed. Just developing locally saves so much time. So you just have to save the file and then refresh your browser. And there's even plugins that you can install. So when it's watching a folder and when any of those files change and save, it automatically refreshes the browser. So that is the local environment. Make sure that you pick one and start utilizing it. It's going to save you a bunch of time and frustration, especially when you are dealing with slow Wi-Fi or maybe a site that it has a lot of caching. I spent a lot of time when I was first getting started, like trying to change CSS, and I would change CSS and then the effects wouldn't take a place. And I was like, what is going on? Well, it turned out that there was a cache set up on the host, and the cache like didn't refresh every hour or whatnot, or it was terrible. So I would make a change and save and refresh and nothing would change. And it was because all of the CSS was cached. And so doing it locally, there's not that issue. So that is the second one. Make sure that you have a local environment. The third one on my list here is something called SQL Ace. And this one is a Mac only one. I believe they might have other versions or there's similar ones as well. But SQL Ace is a plugin that you can use to go to database tables on your local site or your local environment. And I use this a lot to just try to figure out what might be going on. Maybe something's broken. Maybe I'm trying to figure out, information, or sometimes, I don't know, there's a lot of reasons why you could go into the database. And so right here, I'm in the WP options table, and I can see that this is for the site that we just looked at, that woo.test. And if I wanted to change that URL for some reason, if I wanted to go in and change the theme, sometimes like if you delete a theme from the server, but it still says the theme, like this is its storefront, then what happens there is then the site will load a white page, and that's not good. It also has the ability in here, if you look, I'm not gonna be able to find it probably real easily, but there is the ability in here to see what all plugins are activated. Here's your widgets and what widgets are available, but there is an option in here that shows all activated plugins. And so if you needed to deactivate one real quick, you could do it through this interface. So there's lots of tables in here because I am using, I have a bunch of WooCommerce test plugins installed, and so a lot of them add a bunch of different things. Normally the database doesn't have this many tables, but this is how this installation is, just for examples here. So that is the third one, to make sure that you have some way to get in and look at the database. Now, most of these local by Flywheel desktop server have a web interface using PHPMyAdmin, and that works okay, but it's not going to be the best. This just works really, really well. You have the ability to do some queries. You can, find out, maybe you want to see like how many people, bought a certain product. You could write a query to pull in all that information. Or maybe you wanted to go and you wanted to see like in the post table. So I've got all these thousands of posts. Maybe I want to see how many of those are revisions and how many are published posts. And so you could go in and use the query model here and write some SQL and figure it out. And actually there's some favorites, so you can save some different favorites of like queries that you've done before to find the information that you need. And I don't know, it's really, really handy, and you can do some really cool things with SQL Ace. The next one on my list here is number 4 actually, and it is called Transmit. And Transmit is an FTP editor. And basically what an FTP editor is it is just a way to browse files on a web server. That's the nuts and bolts of it. And it's probably the best one that's out there. It looks like this little truck here, and it does a really good job of like saving different types of servers. So if you have FTP and SFTP are mainly the ways that we communicate with web servers, but maybe you have some content on Amazon S3 or Backblaze B2. I have a lot of backups on Backblaze B2, and so I can peruse those files just by looking through there. You can put Dropbox on there so you can get instant access to your Dropbox. Maybe you have Dropbox on, you don't want to install the application on your site, but you want to be able to get to those files without having to go to the web interface. You can use Dropbox for that. They also have Microsoft Drives and Google Drives, and you can get access to all those without using the web interface. Again, it's a super pretty installation. It's a super pretty app, and I've been using Transmit for years and years and years. There's other ones that are out there that like CyberDuck, there's FileZilla, there's a couple of them that are free that are cross-platform, but this one is Mac only, and it works really, really well. And they also have the ability to sync different data. So like if you have multiple computers, you can have your FTP servers and all your data synced back and forth without having to, copy and paste all of those passwords on multiple devices. So again, you don't necessarily need Transmit, but a good FTP editor with the sites that you're using, save those as favorites or bookmarks, and so you can easily access these. These are really helpful when you maybe you update a plugin and then all of a sudden your site won't load, it's probably because there's an error with one of the plugins. And then what you can do with FTP is you can navigate to the plugins folder and then just rename the plugin file. So all the plugins will have their own folder names, and then you can just go ahead and rename those. And once it's renamed, then the plugin will automatically not load. And once it's not loaded, then your site will come back and then you can fix it and figure out what's going on from there. That's probably what I use the most. Sometimes you need to look at error logs. You can get to those with FTP. There's a lot of, just miscellaneous things that FTP is good for. So it's good to have all of them set up. So when usually you need it when you're in a pinch for some reason. And so if you have to go and figure out what your FTP username and password is, it's really kind of a pain. To get your FTP information, you're going to have to go into your web interface and figure out what that is. And there's usually an FTP section inside of whatever dashboard that you have. It's not your WordPress username and password, and it's not usually your hosting username and password. There's some details. There's usually 4 pieces of information that they'll provide, and you just have to copy and paste them into the FTP client. The next one on my list is called Hyper, and it is a terminal-based application. There's a terminal that comes with a Mac. There's one on Windows, but this is cross-platform, and it allows you to customize your terminal. And so what I mean by customize is you can make it look pretty. You can use themes. I'm using the same Cobalt 2 theme that the VS Code is using, which is really nice, and it has the ability to customize all those things. So if we take a look here, I'll pull up Hyper, and this is what it looks like. And you can see that it's just very, very basic. If I cd, which means change directory, into sites, and then woo, looks like I have 2 there. Let's just go into woo. It will now show me the last time that I made any changes to any of the files here in this application. So this is the numbers in red are actually part of Git, and I'll talk about that as my next one. But basically what this is it gives me the ability to track and see when the latest changes have been made. And so I can do a bunch of cool things. The other bonus tip for today that I want to share is something called WP CLI. So once you're in the terminal, you can do some really cool things. So like if I do WP plugin list, it's going to list all the plugins that I have on this site. I think there's like 100 or 150 plugins. It shows me all the ones that are active, which ones have updates that are available, and what version they're on, which is really helpful. So I can use WP CLI, and I can do another video in the future about just the ins and outs of WP CLI, but this is a really good way, and I use a terminal to do this. And sometimes I'll actually use the terminal inside of VS Code. So with VS Code, remember we had this section down here at the bottom. It's doing the exact same thing, and I can do WP plugin list, and I can show the exact same thing inside a terminal. So this is helpful if you're doing things in your inside of VS Code, like if you just want to continue working in VS Code and just work from the bottom. Otherwise, if you're doing a one-off thing, you might want to open Hyper and then put it in the corner, and you can do a bunch of really fascinating things like making directories or moving files from place to place, or all kinds of things. Way more than what I know how to do, you can do with the terminal. And then the last thing that I want to share with you, the last one is called Git. It's in conjunction with GitHub, and it's basically version tracking. So instead of like having to rename your files, version 1, version 2, version 3 _ final, you don't have to do any of that nonsense. Git will just save the changes, and then using it with GitHub allows you to push those changes to a shared repository. So for example, if you wanted to, if you found something that was broken on WooCommerce or WordPress, you could basically write code and then push the changes, just the pieces that you've changed. You can push those as what's called a pull request, and then the owners of WordPress, say for example you were fixing something there, then what they would do is they would fix it, or they would be able to say, yes, we like it, okay, we'll accept your change, accept your pull request. And that's what it does. And so I need to do a full video on Git and how to use it, but I use this daily when I am either working on a bug for work, or I save all of the changes. I update plugins one at a time on my local site. I save the version in Git, and then in case I have to roll back to them for any reason, and then I push those changes live, and I can talk about that on an upcoming video. But Git is something that is a very good tool to have in your tool belt when you are developing for WordPress. All right, so those are going to be the 6 things today that I wanted to share with you. Let me know if there's anything that I missed. Add those down below in the comments. And as always, as you're on here on YouTube, make sure that you like and subscribe. Hit that bell notification if you want to make sure that you're notified every time I put out new content. We're going to be doing more about WordPress CLI. We're going to talk more about these local environments and all the different things that I feel are important to kind of level up and turn yourself into a WordPress developer. That's all I've got for you this week. Take care. Bye-bye.